Happy Friday, everyone, and welcome to the program. We're so glad to have you with us. And today on Firstpost America, war rages on in the Middle East with all eyes now on the White House as the conflict between Israel and Iran continues to intensify. We've got the latest on this and other stories coming up, but we begin with the latest headlines. Pro-Palestinian activists in the United Kingdom say they broke into a Royal Air Force base in England and damaged 2 military aircraft used for refueling and transport. India's warplane maker HAL wins a bid to privately manufacture the country's small satellite launch vehicles, marking New Delhi's biggest step yet to open its fast-growing space industry to the private sector. Data show the price of rice in Japan has doubled in the 12 months to May as inflation surges and pressure mounts on Prime Minister Beersheba ahead of key elections next month. Norway says it aims to impose a temporary ban on the establishment of new data centers that mine cryptocurrency using the most power-intensive technologies to conserve electricity for other industries. And U.S. singer Chris Brown pleads not guilty in a UK court to attacking a music producer with a bottle at a London nightclub 2 years ago. The war between Israel and Iran has entered its 8th day as both sides continue to trade missile and drone attacks in one of the region's most volatile escalations in decades. Israeli cities were rocked by new strikes overnight, while Tehran confirmed a fresh wave of missile and drone assaults targeting military installations in Haifa and Tel Aviv. And the latest Iranian missiles caused significant damage in southern Israel. And according to Israel's paramedic agency, at least 6 people were injured in an Iranian missile strike Friday morning in southern Israel, and emergency response teams continued searching for casualties in affected apartment buildings in the area. And adding to the tension, Israel also accused Iran of using a cluster bomb for the first time in the conflict. According to the Israeli military, a missile carrying around 20 submunitions exploded over central Israel, scattering small bombs across a wide area. In fact, one of the most alarming developments yet, yesterday a hospital in Beersheba was also struck by Iranian missiles. The hospital burst into flames after being repeatedly hit, with 40 people reported injured.
They're targeting civilians because they're a criminal regime. They're the arch terrorists of the world. They want to have nuclear terrorism, which will put the entire world under nuclear blackmail, and they would use these weapons. That's what the Ayatollah Khamenei says that he would do. He would use these weapons to wipe Israel off the map. Not going to. We're not going to let him.
Iran claimed it had been targeting a nearby Israeli military base, not the hospital, but global outrage has followed. UN Human Rights Chief condemned the disregard for civilian life, calling the situation appalling.
And the department that was directly hit was empty at the time it was hit. Other departments across the medical center had patients in them, were hit, and we have 40 injured people from people who were in the hospital at the time. The vast majority of these staff and patients are lightly wounded from broken glass, falling ceilings, and other effects. They were all treated in our emergency department.
Meanwhile, the Israeli response was both swift and fierce. The Israeli military released a video on Friday which showed strikes on air defense systems and missile launchers in Iran. In an interview, Prime Minister Netanyahu declared that change or fall of the Iranian regime is not Israel's goal at the moment, but it could be as a result.
Our primary objective is to stop the nuclear program and remove it as a threat. The second goal is to halt the advancement of ballistic capabilities, also to remove it as a threat. You've seen this with the broadcast center, and there's more to come. But the matter of regime change is, first and foremost, up to the Iranian people. There is no shortcut to that. Therefore, I have not set it as an official or declared goal. It may be a result, but it is not an explicit objective of our operation.
Now, amid the chaos, Iran's Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps announced a change in leadership. Brigadier General Maid Kadami was named the new head of the IRGC intelligence following the death of his predecessor, Mohammad Kazemi, who was killed in an Israeli airstrike alongside 2 other senior officials. Still, the death toll continues to rise. In Israel, the discovery of a woman's body in a building hit by missiles pushed the total number of Israeli fatalities to 25. Iran claims at least 224 of its citizens have been killed, including military commanders and nuclear scientists, though an updated figure has yet to be released. On the diplomatic front, Russia has warned Israel against striking Iran's nuclear power plant, comparing the potential fallout to the Chernobyl disaster. And Secretary of State Marco Rubio held talks with key allies, including Britain, France, Australia, and Italy.
If there is a strike on the operational first power unit, it will be a catastrophe comparable to Chernobyl.
Meanwhile, Hezbollah's leader pledged all forms of support to Iran, but stopped short of declaring open war. In response, Israeli Defense Minister warned Hezbollah to stay out, stating Israel's patience with terrorists has run out. And as the missiles fly and diplomacy races against the clock, the region is staring at the possibility of a much wider war. And as the world powers weigh their next move, the Middle East continues to burn. And continuing with the escalating Israel-Iran conflict, President Donald Trump has taken center stage with a major decision looming. In a statement delivered by White House Press Secretary Carolyn Leavitt, President Trump said he will decide within the next 2 weeks whether or not the United States will directly join the ongoing war in the Middle East.
Regarding the ongoing situation in Iran, I know there has been a lot of speculation amongst all of you in the media regarding the president's decision-making and whether or not the United States will be directly involved. In light of that news, I have a message directly from the president, and I quote, "Based on the fact that there's a substantial chance of negotiations that may or may not take place with Iran in the near future, I will make my decision whether or not to go within the next 2 weeks." That's a quote directly from the president for all of you today.
Now, President Trump's stance remains vague because after the White House announcement, the president later told reporters, quote, "I may do it, I may not do it," end quote. The Trump administration has chosen to maintain strategic ambiguity, keeping its next move closely guarded. Press Secretary Leavitt repeatedly declined to answer questions about hypothetical scenarios, including whether the president would consult Congress or host Iranian officials at the White House.
The president is always interested in a diplomatic solution to the problems and the global conflicts in this world. Again, he is a peacemaker in chief. He is the peace through strength president. And so if there's a chance for diplomacy, the president's always going to grab it. But he's not afraid to use strength as well, I will add.
Still, the administration has emphasized that preventing Iran from acquiring a nuclear weapon remains President Trump's top priority. Intelligence assessments have suggested Iran is dangerously close to achieving nuclear capability, something the president seems to believe despite earlier assessments from intelligence officials.
The president's top priority right now is ensuring that Iran cannot obtain a nuclear weapon and providing peace and stability in the Middle East. It is a fact, and the United States government maintains this fact, that Iran has never been closer to obtaining a nuclear weapon.
Meanwhile, speculation over a possible U.S. strike has only intensified. CBS reported that President Trump had already approved plans to target Iran, though he hadn't made a final decision. Sources suggest he's waiting to see if Iran is willing to abandon its nuclear ambitions before taking action. Reports also hint that a potential target could be the heavily fortified Fordo facility, a uranium enrichment site buried deep in the mountainside. Iran maintains, however, that Fordo is peaceful civilian use, but U.S. officials believe it could become a key player in Iran's nuclear progress. And only America, it is believed, has the capability to destroy it. Meanwhile, Iran has issued a clear warning against U.S. involvement. Iran's deputy foreign minister told the BBC that if President Trump chooses to step in, it would cause hell in the region, turning the war into a quagmire and dragging the U.S. into a conflict it doesn't belong in.
But if they would like to get into this war, President Trump will be remembered forever for a war that it was not his war, but dragged him. And this will be a quagmire, and this will be hell for the whole region.
Still, diplomatic channels are open as U.S. Special Envoy Steve Witkoff has reportedly been in touch with Iranian Foreign Minister Abbas Araghchi, holding multiple calls over the past week in hopes of finding a peaceful exit from the crisis. European diplomats are also working a parallel track and have met Iranian officials in Switzerland just today. With the death toll mounting and diplomacy hanging by a thread, the world now waits for one man's decision. Will Trump step in or stay out? The clock is ticking. And now we shift our focus to Israel, where Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu is in the midst of another controversy. With missiles falling and tensions with Iran at a boiling point, Netanyahu has drawn criticism after evoking his son's postponed wedding as an example of personal cost during the ongoing conflict.
Each of U.S. bears a personal cost, and my family has not been exempt. This is the second time that my son Avner has canceled a wedding due to missile threats. It is a personal cost for his fiancée as well, and I must say that my dear wife is a hero, and she bears a personal cost.
The comments came on Thursday during a media briefing outside the Soroka Medical Center in Beersheba, which was struck by an Iranian missile earlier that morning and reportedly wounded more than 70 people. Standing near the blast site, Netanyahu referenced the British World War II experience and once again vowed to eliminate what he called the nuclear and missile threat aimed at Israel's annihilation.
Israel is fighting to remove the nuclear and missile threat aimed at our annihilation. We're targeting military sites. We're targeting nuclear sites. We're targeting missile sites. They're targeting a hospital.
But the Prime Minister's remarks, intended to show solidarity with Israeli citizens, instead drew sharp criticism from the public and political opponents. Online, many Israelis called the comments insensitive, especially amid rising civilian casualties and ongoing hostage situation in Gaza. Anat Angres, the mother of Hamas-held hostage Matan Angres, in a post on social media highlighted her own family's struggles. She said her son had been in hellish dungeons of Gaza for 622 days and that she was still waiting for the Prime Minister to bring him home. Meanwhile, lawmakers also joined the criticism, with Knesset members Gilad Kariv calling Netanyahu a narcissist.
I know many families who were not forced to postpone a wedding, but who will now never celebrate the weddings that were once meant to take place.
Kariv also challenged the Prime Minister's praise of his wife Sarah, whom he described as a hero.
The doctors who leave home for night shifts are the heroes. The teachers who keep our children together on Zoom and phone calls are the heroes.
Another former Israeli minister accused the Netanyahu family of lacking self-awareness and humility.
This is a family with zero self-awareness, zero humility, and with a rare mix of narcissism, egocentrism, and collective sociopathy that for some reason we, their subjects, have become accustomed to enduring in silence, some even with great admiration.
One social media user wrote that while the Prime Minister's family is likely protected in secure facilities, ordinary Israelis scramble for bomb shelters with lives being lost daily. And now criticism over wedding plans of Prime Minister Netanyahu's son had reportedly been brewing in Israel for several days. The ceremony was first scheduled for November but was postponed due to security concerns. It was then rescheduled for Monday despite reported warnings over opposition protests. The report suggests that more than 1,000 guests had been invited for the wedding, prompting condemnation that such an extravagance underscored the disconnect between the Netanyahu family and the public at large. And according to some reports, the Prime Minister planned a short leave for the ceremony, which may have also contributed to a false sense of calm in Tehran ahead of Israel's aerial strikes just last week. And for now, the Prime Minister has not responded to the criticism, but as the war enters a new week, the questions around leadership, sacrifice, and public trust only grow louder. TikTok's future in the United States remains in limbo, but for now, it's been given a reprieve. President Donald Trump has hit pause on a federally mandated ban for the third time, buying the Chinese-owned platform more time to finalize a sale. The new deadline is now September 17th. And while the White House says it's about protecting users and completing a deal, critics are calling it a national security risk. So what's really behind this extension? Our next report has more.
I guess I like TikTok. I was #1 on TikTok, and it's history.
President Donald Trump has once again delayed a federally mandated ban on TikTok. This time he signed an executive order granting the Chinese-owned platform another 90 days, extending the sale deadline to September 17. The announcement was made on Truth Social. Confirming the move, the White House said the delay is meant to finalize pending sale while keeping the platform available to Americans.
Political reasoning for this, of course, is because the president made a promise to keep TikTok on. There are 100 million Americans who use this app. It's widely popular. He also wants to protect Americans' data and privacy concerns on this app, and he believes we can do both things at the same time.
TikTok welcomed the extension, saying it continues to work with Vice President J.D. Vance's office on a path forward. This is the third time President Trump has extended the deadline for TikTok, which is used by 170 million Americans and serves 7.5 million U.S. businesses. The first was on January 20th, his first day back in office. The second came in April that pushed the deadline to June 19th, and now the ban is on hold until mid-September. The president has repeatedly said he wants to save TikTok, but that wasn't always the case. In 2020, during his first term as president, he moved to block the platform, saying its data collection could give the Chinese Communist Party access to Americans' personal and proprietary information. But his approach has shifted since. Why is that so? Because the ByteDance-owned platform had become central to his campaign outreach to young voters last year. He now reportedly has 15 million followers on TikTok.
TikTok was amazing. And he was the first one. He said, get on TikTok. So I have a little bit of a warm spot. I know I shouldn't. They'll say quid pro quo, put him in jail for the rest of his life, quid pro quo. No, TikTok was very good to me. I won young people.
But the executive order extending the deadline contradicts a federal law passed last year, which gave ByteDance a clear ultimatum: sell the app or face a ban over national security concerns. And critics are pushing back. Democratic Senator Mike Warner, Vice Chair of the Senate Intelligence Committee, says the extensions undermine national security and accuses the president of sidestepping the law. Earlier this year, a deal to sell TikTok's U.S. assets to a consortium including Oracle and Blackstone was reportedly underway. But talks allegedly stalled after China refused to approve it following the president's tariff announcements. This week, President Trump expressed hope that Chinese President Xi Jinping would back a deal that preserves the app. So far, no legal challenges have been filed against the extensions, meaning TikTok remains online. But the clock is ticking. Will the deal go through? Will China agree? Or will the president delay again?
And we end today with heartbreaking scenes from southern Mexico, where Hurricane Arak has left a trail of destruction along the Pacific coast. The powerful storm slammed into Oaxaca as a Category 3 hurricane, tearing through towns, flooding streets, and cutting off power and communication for thousands. And as the region begins to clean up, the full scale of the damage is only just coming to light. In fact, 2 people have been confirmed dead. And we take you to the hardest hit areas where residents are facing the aftermath with heartbreak, resilience, and still unanswered questions.
Southern Mexico woke up to heartbreak, wreckage, and loss after Hurricane Arak roared ashore and struck its Pacific coastline as a fierce Category 3 hurricane before weakening inland. The destruction left in its wake, however, is anything but minor. The storm made landfall in the morning in the state of Oaxaca, killing 2 people, unleashing winds of up to 125 miles per hour and torrential rains that triggered landslides, power outages, and widespread flooding. By night, it had weakened to a tropical depression and was expected to dissipate over the mountains in Michoacan, but not before tearing through communities and displacing hundreds. In the scenic beach town of Puerto Escondido, known for its laid-back surf culture and colorful sunsets, the mood turned somber. Streets were flooded, power lines snapped, boats lay buried in sand. An entire neighborhood lost electricity and cell phone coverage. Over 120,000 people lost power in Oaxaca, with only a fraction restored by afternoon. In nearby Santiago Pinotepa Nacional, rising floodwaters forced around 200 people into emergency shelters. Meanwhile, in Salina Cruz, a major seaport, the storm left cars stranded in waterlogged streets, prompting police to assist drivers and clear debris. Tragically, authorities confirmed the death of a 1-year-old boy who drowned in a swollen river, a gut-wrenching reminder that even a single loss is too many. Along Oaxaca's mountainous terrain and into Neighbor and Guerrero, rain fell in relentless sheets, threatening more landslides and mudslides. Roads were blocked, homes damaged, and 2 hospitals reported structural harm. 7 Afro-Mexican communities in Villa de Tututepec were also affected, as rainfall flooded homes and severed transportation routes. In Acapulco, shops were boarded up, boats grounded, and streets eerily deserted as residents braced for the worst. Many stocked up on essentials, fearing a repeat of 2023's deadly Hurricane Otis' sudden intensification. The aftermath now stretches across miles of ravaged coastline. The beach in Puerto Escondido, once a tourist haven, has been transformed into a dumping ground of storm-tossed debris, plastic bottles, tree branches, and shattered boats littering the shore. Flights remain grounded in Huatulco and Puerto Escondido. Ports remain shut, and major highways are impassable due to landslides. The Federal Electricity Commission continues to work around the clock, trying to restore power. Though Hurricane Arak is now a shadow of the Category 4 menace, its legacy is far from over. The U.S. National Hurricane Center warned that 6 to 16 inches of rain could still fall across the region, threatening even more floods and deadly mudslides. As southern Mexico begins the painful process of recovery, the mood is one of exhaustion and anxiety. The scars of Arak will linger long after the floodwaters recede. A storm may pass, but the devastation it leaves behind, especially the loss of a child, takes far longer to heal.
That's all we have time for today. We certainly thank you for tuning in, not just today, but every day. We hope you have a great weekend, and we look forward to seeing you right back here next week. Thanks again, everyone, for watching.